On the eve of war in 1939, deep beneath the Reichsbank in Berlin, vault doors groaned open. Inside were bars of gold, glinting in the dim light, stacked like bricks of eternity. Each one bore marks from foreign mints: London, Amsterdam, Vienna, Prague. It was wealth stripped from conquered nations, stolen in silence, smuggled in secrecy, and about to be turned into fuel for the most destructive war the world had ever seen. Nazi Germany had discovered that guns, tanks, and aircraft could be built with steel. But wars were truly powered by gold, and they were determined to seize it, wherever it lay. When German troops marched into Austria in March 1938, they did not only occupy streets and palaces, they moved swiftly into the Austrian National Bank, forcing officials to open their reserves. Within days, over 90 tons of Austrian gold were packed into trains and shipped to Berlin. Newspapers celebrated Anschluss, but in the Reichsbank, men in dark uniforms quietly counted bullion and smiled. Within a year, Austria's treasure was melted into the Nazi war chest. The pattern repeated with each conquest. In Prague, after the occupation of Czechoslovakia, the Nazis demanded access to the country's reserves. But the gold was not even in Prague. It had been stored in London for safety. That did not stop the Germans. With shocking ease, they pressured the Bank of England to release it, using deception and diplomatic pressure. In March 1939, even as Europe trembled, the Bank of England transferred Czech gold into German accounts. Britain had unknowingly financed the war machine that would soon turn its bombs back on London. As the Wehrmacht advanced, vault doors fell like dominoes. Belgium, the Netherlands, Poland, France, each one stripped of its reserves. In some cases, central bankers themselves tried to hide or evacuate their gold, sending it on ships across the Atlantic. But often they were too late. German officials arrived with meticulous lists of reserves, demanding immediate transfer. The Reichsbank became the spider at the center of a golden web stretching across Europe. But conquest was not the only source. The Nazi regime looted not just nations, but individuals. From Jewish families came rings, watches, wedding bands, even gold teeth pulled from the dead in concentration camps. Trains carrying human cargo to Auschwitz returned with sacks of valuables. SS officers meticulously sorted jewelry, melted it down, and poured it into ingots. It was industrialized theft, wealth squeezed from suffering, refined into anonymous bars indistinguishable from those taken from central banks. In the Reichsbank's ledgers, there was no line distinguishing the origins. Gold was gold. Inside Berlin, officials converted this metal into international power. With bullion in their vaults, the Nazis could trade with neutral nations. Gold crossed into Switzerland, where discreet bankers melted it again, stamped it anew, and made it acceptable to the global financial system. Nazi gold bought Swedish iron ore, Portuguese tungsten, Spanish goods, Swiss machinery. Without this laundering, the German war machine would have starved of resources. But with it, factories roared, weapons multiplied, and armies rolled forward. The irony is that gold, the most ancient of stores of value, became the lubricant of modern mechanized war. Each tank that rolled into Poland, each Messerschmitt that screamed over London, each U-boat that prowled the Atlantic bore traces of gold stolen from vaults and from veins of victims. The war was not only fought with bullets and bombs, but with coins melted into bars, teeth melted into bullion, and the greed of bankers who looked away. And as we move deeper into this story, one that reveals how wealth stolen in silence fueled violence on an industrial scale, pause for a moment. If you want to uncover more stories like this, where history reveals its darkest secrets and its most unsettling lessons, make sure to subscribe now. That way, you'll never miss the next chapter of history's hidden truths. By 1940, the Reich's reserves had swollen to staggering levels. Berlin had become Europe's financial predator, feasting on the savings of nations and the lives of people. Yet this was not only a German crime. Neutral countries played their roles. In Zurich and Basel, vaults opened, Melted bars poured and accounts swelled. In Lisbon, ships loaded with tungsten sailed in exchange for Nazi bullion. In Madrid, transactions passed quietly through hands that claimed neutrality but profited from war. Everywhere the gold went, silence followed. And as silence turned into complicity, the war machine kept running. In the shadows of the Swiss Alps, discreet bankers worked quietly as the Reich grew bolder. Nazi gold stamped with foreign mint marks or melted down from stolen jewelry poured across the border. Switzerland declared neutrality, but neutrality did not mean refusal. Vaults in Zurich and Basel accepted bars by the ton, melted them, re-stamped them, and made them indistinguishable from any other bullion in the world market. Paperwork vanished into coded ledgers where numbers mattered but origins did not. For Switzerland, discretion was a service, and the Reich paid in gold. These flows of bullion transformed neutrality into complicity. With Swiss cooperation, Germany gained access to foreign currency. Swiss francs could be converted to dollars, pounds, or used to pay for essential imports. From Sweden came iron ore, the lifeblood of steel. From Portugal came tungsten, critical for armor-piercing shells. From Spain came goods and raw materials. Each trade left behind the shine of Nazi gold in European vaults. Each shipment of ore and tungsten returned to Germany, where factories thundered day and night, forging the weapons of war. But Switzerland was not alone. Sweden, Portugal, and Spain all played their parts. In Lisbon, trains unloaded gold in exchange for tungsten, the metal that hardened German shells. In Stockholm, German envoys arranged deals for iron that would strengthen tanks and U-boats. The gold, once stripped from vaults in Vienna or pried from rings in Auschwitz, now bought raw materials essential for conquest. Neutral nations profited, German industry thrived, and the war raged on. The Reich's hunger for gold was not only about trade. Gold was security. When paper currencies trembled, gold remained trust itself. In the paranoia of total war, Hitler and his ministers believed that as long as they held bullion, the Reich could endure blockades and survive shortages. Every bar stacked in Berlin represented not just wealth, but endurance. The Nazis even constructed hidden vaults and salt mines in mountains, burying treasure in anticipation of defeat. The Vatican, too, found itself entangled in this golden web. Though details remain clouded in secrecy, records suggest that some Nazi gold was funneled through Vatican institutions, disguised as church assets or humanitarian funds. The Holy See, maintaining neutrality, accepted deposits from Axis-linked banks. Whether knowingly or not, Vatican channels became part of the laundering chain. After the war, allegations persisted that Vatican accounts had sheltered looted wealth. The truth remains disputed, but the suspicion endures like a shadow. Meanwhile, in Germany itself, the brutality of looting never slowed. SS officers stripped prisoners of jewelry, gold watches, spectacles with gold frames. Dentists in camps pulled teeth from the mouths of the dead, melting fillings into ingots. Trains carrying human beings returned with sacks of metal. This grotesque harvest was funneled into the Reichsbank, where it joined the reserves of nations, indistinguishable from official bullion. In the ledgers, the difference between a bar stolen from Belgium's treasury and a bar melted from wedding rings no longer existed. Gold was gold, and war needed it. By 1942, the Nazi gold reserves had swelled to hundreds of tons. These reserves enabled Berlin to defy financial isolation, buying goods from neutral states even as the Allies tightened blockades. Gold purchased raw materials, paid for covert operations, lubricated alliances. Without it, the Reich's war machine would have sputtered. With it, the Blitzkrieg rolled on. But even the mountains of bullion could not prevent decline. As the war turned against Germany in 1943 and 1944, officials began to hide reserves. Caves in Bavaria, salt mines in Austria, secret bunkers in the Alps. All were filled with bars, coins, and art looted alongside. In the final months of the Reich, Trucks rumbled into the mountains carrying chests of treasure. Somewhere hidden in darkness, the gold of Europe waited for a future that never came. When Allied troops advanced in 1945, they uncovered some of these caches. In the Merkers salt mine in Thuringia, U.S. soldiers found 8,000 bars of gold, valued at hundreds of millions, alongside bags of coins and stolen art. Photographs of GIs standing before walls of bullion became symbols of the vast theft. But the full extent was never recovered. Trains had vanished, vaults had been emptied, convoys had disappeared into smoke. Rumors of missing Nazi gold haunted post-war Europe. Stories spread of treasure sunk in lakes, hidden in monasteries, smuggled across borders. Some of it was real. Some remains legend. After the war, the Allies created the Tripartite Gold Commission, tasked with returning stolen gold to its rightful nations. Some bullion was indeed restituted to central banks. Belgium, the Netherlands, and others reclaimed part of what was lost. But vast amounts were never traced. Much of the looted gold that passed through Switzerland and other neutrals had been melted, laundered, and dispersed. Once stamped anew, it could not be distinguished from legitimate bullion. It disappeared into the bloodstream of global finance. The moral questions lingered. How much did Swiss bankers know? How deeply were the Vatican and neutral nations complicit? Could the world forgive those who had turned theft into trade? In the decades that followed, inquiries and investigations tried to pierce the veil. Reports in the 1990s revealed that Switzerland had accepted as much as 400 tons of Nazi gold, some of it unmistakably looted. Compensation funds were established, but the sense of injustice never faded. The victims' rings, teeth, and savings had been transformed into steel, bullets, and bombs, and then into anonymous bars that vanished into banks. The story of Nazi gold is not only about theft on a monumental scale. It is about how wealth stolen in silence fueled violence in daylight. It shows how the oldest symbol of trust, gold, became the enabler of betrayal. It teaches that neutrality, when lubricated by profit, can turn into collaboration. And it leaves us with an image both grotesque and unforgettable. A war machine roaring forward, fueled by bars of metal that once belonged to families, to nations, to the dead. And so the lesson survives. Gold may gleam eternal, but its shine can conceal crimes. Nations may call themselves neutral, but their vaults may tell another story. Wars are not only fought on battlefields, they are financed in vaults, in ledgers, in whispered agreements across polished desks. The next time we speak of history's wars, we must remember not only the soldiers and the battles, but the treasure that moved silently beneath them. Treasure that determined who fought, who starved, and who profited. The tale of Nazi gold ends in shadows. Some of it was found, some returned, some melted and absorbed into the anonymous flow of global bullion. But much of it remains unaccounted for. Somewhere, bars stamped with stolen origins lie in vaults, their history erased but not forgotten. They are the silent witnesses to a war financed not only by ideology and violence, but by greed. The vault doors of 1939, the bars stacked high, the jewelry melted into ingots. These remain images that speak louder than numbers. They remind us that behind every tank, every bullet, every bombing raid, there's always someone counting coins, weighing metal, and deciding what price to pay for war. And they warn us that when the price is hidden in vaults, history may repeat the same mistakes.